The Four Noble Truths, a simple guide. In the annals of human spiritual and philosophical inquiry, few teachings have been as foundational, enduring, and profoundly practical as the Four Noble Truths, delivered by Siddhartha Gautama shortly after his attainment of enlightenment. This seminal discourse, known as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the Sutta on setting the wheel of Dhamma in motion, was the opening salvo of a 45-year teaching career that would change the world. It was to a small group of 5 former companions in a deer park at Sarnath, near modern-day Varanasi, that the Buddha first articulated the core of his realization. This teaching is not a complex metaphysical system to be accepted on blind faith. Nor is it a set of divine commandments. Rather, it is a pragmatic, experiential framework, presented with the elegant precision of a master physician diagnosing an ailment, identifying its cause, confirming a cure is possible, and prescribing the definitive course of treatment. The very name, the Four Noble Truths, can be subtly misleading to a modern ear. The Pali word Arya, translated as noble, does not imply that the truths themselves are aristocratic or exclusive. It means that they are the truths realized by noble ones, that is, by enlightened or spiritually mature beings. They are ennobling because to understand them is to embark on a path that ennobles the heart and mind. The word for truth, sakka, carries the connotation of an undeniable, existential reality, something that is so, in the deepest sense. Therefore, these are not 4 dogmas to be believed, but 4 realities to be directly perceived, investigated, and ultimately realized within the laboratory of one's own experience. This simple guide seeks to unpack these 4 profound realities. While they can be stated with concise simplicity, each truth is a gateway to a lifetime of study and practice, containing layers of meaning that unfold as one's wisdom deepens. We will explore them in their classic sequence, following the Buddha's own diagnostic method. First, understanding the disease. Second, discovering its cause. Third, realizing the prognosis for a cure. And fourth, diligently applying the medicine. This is the timeless blueprint for liberation from suffering and the attainment of a lasting, unshakable peace. The first noble truth, the truth of dukkha, the diagnosis. This, monks, is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Illness is suffering. Death is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are suffering. Association with the unpleasant is suffering. Separation from the pleasant is suffering. Not to get what one wants is suffering. In short, the 5 clinging aggregates are suffering. The first noble truth is arguably the most frequently misunderstood aspect of the Buddhist teachings. The Pali word at its heart, dukkha, is often given a simple, one-word translation, suffering. This translation, while not entirely incorrect, is dangerously incomplete. It has led many to mistakenly characterize Buddhism as a pessimistic, life-denying, or morbid philosophy. To truly grasp the Buddha's insight, we must understand that dukkha encompasses a vast spectrum of experience, from the most agonizing pain to the most subtle and pervasive sense of existential unease. It is not a declaration that life is nothing but pain, but a clear-eyed, realistic assessment of our conditioned human experience. A doctor who accurately diagnoses a widespread illness is not a pessimist. They are a realist providing the essential first step toward a cure. To appreciate its full depth, Buddhist scholars and practitioners traditionally analyze dukkha on 3 distinct levels. 1. The obvious suffering, dukkha. This is the level of dukkha that is easiest to understand, as it corresponds most closely to our conventional idea of suffering. It is the raw, undeniable pain of body and mind. The Buddha lists its most universal manifestations: the trauma of birth, the inevitable decline of aging, the vulnerability to sickness, and the certainty of death. These are the great, unavoidable realities of corporeal existence that no amount of wealth, power, or technological advancement can ultimately erase. Beyond these physical realities, this category includes all forms of mental and emotional pain. The Buddha lists sorrow, soka, the deep grief that arises from loss, lamentation, parideva, the outward expression of that grief, pain, dukkha. Here used in its ordinary sense, grief, domanassa, a more enduring mental anguish or discontent, and despair, upayasa, the state of utter hopelessness. It also includes the situational suffering we all experience. Being forced into contact with people or situations we dislike, association with the unpleasant, and, perhaps most universally, being torn away from the people and experiences we cherish, separation from the pleasant. Finally, there is the chronic frustration of not to get what one wants. The gap between our desires and our reality that fuels so much of our daily striving and disappointment. This first level of dukkha is the starting point. It is the shared, universal experience that makes the Buddha's teaching accessible to everyone, regardless of their station in life. Even the most fortunate prince, as Siddhartha himself was, could not be shielded from the sight of old age, sickness, and death. Recognizing dukkha is the first crack in the armor of our denial. The moment we begin to question whether chasing fleeting pleasures is a truly viable strategy for lasting happiness. 2. The suffering of change, viparinama dukkha. The second level of dukkha is more subtle and psychologically profound. Viparinama dukkha is the unsatisfactoriness and stress that arise due to the impermanence, anicca, of all pleasant experiences. This is the suffering inherent in happiness itself. It is the bittersweet awareness that the beautiful sunset will fade. The delightful meal will end. The joyful vacation will be over. The passionate love affair will change or cool. And youth will give way to age. We invest enormous energy in creating, chasing, and holding on to pleasant moments. Yet, because all conditioned things are by their very nature impermanent, this project is doomed to fail. The very pleasure we grasp contains the seed of its own absence. The anxiety of losing what we have, the sadness when a happy moment passes, and the desperate craving to replicate past joys are all forms of viparinama dukkha. It's the hidden stress underlying our attachment to the good times. This insight reveals that the problem is not with the world itself, but with our relationship to it. We suffer not because pleasant things end, but because we cling to them as if they could be permanent, as if they could provide a solid and lasting refuge. This level of dukkha moves the investigation from the obvious pain of life to the inherent instability of our pleasures, showing that even our happiness, when based on temporary conditions, is a source of subtle stress and ultimate disappointment. 3. The suffering of conditioned existence, sankhara dukkha. This is the most profound and difficult level of dukkha to grasp, and it points to the very heart of the Buddha's unique insight. Sankhara dukkha is the pervasive, underlying unsatisfactoriness inherent in existence itself as a conditioned being. It is the existential friction of being a composite, dependent, and fundamentally unstable phenomenon. The Buddha's final summary of the First Noble Truth is, in short, the 5 clinging aggregates are suffering. These 5 aggregates, or khandhas, are the components that make up our entire psychophysical being. Form, the physical body. Feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Perception, the recognition of objects. Mental formations, thoughts, intentions, emotions, volitions, and consciousness. This is what we call I, or myself. The problem is that we cling, upadana, to these 5 fluctuating, interdependent processes as if they constituted a solid, permanent, independent self, atta. But the Buddha's analysis reveals that there is no such stable entity. The body is in constant flux. Feelings arise and pass away. Perceptions change, thoughts race, and consciousness flickers from moment to moment. Our very being is a conditioned process, sankhara, a verb masquerading as a noun. Sankhara dukkha is the subtle background stress of this fundamental instability. It's the tension of having to maintain a sense of self against the constant tide of change. It's the deep-seated vulnerability of being a contingent being, utterly dependent on a web of causes and conditions we cannot control. This is the deepest illness the Buddha diagnosed. Not just that we experience pain or that our pleasure fades, but that our very mode of being, when misperceived and clung to, is inherently unsatisfactory and stressful. To fully comprehend sankhara dukkha is to be on the verge of understanding the liberating truths of impermanence, anicca, and no-self, anatta. The second noble truth, the truth of samudaya, the cause. This, monks, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving which leads to re-becoming, accompanied by delight and lust. Seeking delight here and there, that is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for becoming, and craving for non-becoming. Having diagnosed the illness in all its complexity, the physician Buddha proceeds to identify its cause. Crucially, the origin of our dukkha is not found in an external source, not in a wrathful God, an unjust society, or the malevolence of others. While these factors can certainly trigger suffering, the root cause lies within our own minds. This is an empowering truth, for if the cause is internal, then the cure must also be within our own power to realize. The Buddha identifies the origin of dukkha as tanha. This Pali word is often translated as craving or desire, but its literal meaning is thirst. This is a powerfully evocative image. It's not a mild preference or a gentle wish, it is a deep, driving, insatiable thirst. It is the force that propels us from one experience to the next, constantly seeking gratification, constantly feeding the process of becoming, panobhavika, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth known as samsara. The Buddha further analyzed this powerful thirst into three distinct types. 1. Craving for sensual pleasures, kama tanha. This is the most straightforward type of craving. It is the thirst for gratifying experiences through our six senses. In Buddhism, the mind is included as the sixth sense organ. It is the desire for pleasant sights, beautiful sounds, alluring smells, delicious tastes, and pleasurable physical contact. It is also the desire for pleasant thoughts, ideas, and fantasies. Kama tanha is the engine of consumer culture and the fuel for much of our daily activity. We work to earn money to buy things that we believe will bring us pleasure. We seek out entertainment, fine dining, and attractive partners. There is nothing inherently evil about enjoying pleasant things. But the problem of tanha arises when this seeking becomes a compulsive, addictive drive. We believe that if we could just get enough of these pleasant experiences, we would finally be happy. But because the pleasure derived from sense objects is temporary, viparinama dukkha, this strategy is bound to fail. The thirst is never quenched, satisfaction is momentary, and the craving soon re-arises. Demanding a new object, a new experience, we become trapped in a hedonic treadmill, running endlessly in pursuit of a satisfaction that always remains just out of reach. 2. Craving for existence, becoming, bhava tanha. This is a deeper and more powerful form of craving. Bhava means becoming or existence. Bhava tanha is the profound, instinctual drive to continue to exist, to be someone, to establish and perpetuate a solid sense of self. It is the craving for identity, status, recognition, and power. It is the ambition to leave a legacy, to make a mark on the world, to achieve a state of eternal being, whether in this life or in a heavenly afterlife. This craving is deeply rooted in our ego clinging. It is the thirst that fuels our personal narratives, our ambitions, and our desperate attempts to find security in an insecure world. We cling to our name, our job title, our reputation, our nationality, our beliefs, and our possessions as extensions of our self. Bhava tanha is the force that drives us to become better, more successful, or more enlightened, as a way of solidifying our identity. It is the subtle desire to be the hero of our own story. Even the desire for eternal life in heaven is a manifestation of bhava tanha. This thirst for existence is what propels the karmic energy that leads to rebirth, ensuring the continuation of the cycle of dukkha. 3. Craving for non-existence, annihilation, vibhava tanha. At first glance, this form of craving might seem like the opposite of the last, but it is actually the other side of the same coin of attachment. Vibhava tanha is the craving for something to not exist. It is the thirst to get rid of, to destroy, or to annihilate what is unpleasant. On an immediate level, this manifests as anger, hatred, aversion, irritation, and fear. When we experience an unpleasant feeling, a difficult person, or a painful situation, the craving arises for it to be gone. We want to annihilate the pain, push away the person, or escape the situation. This aversion is just as much a form of thirst as is desire. It is a powerful reactive force that binds us just as tightly to the object of our hatred as desire binds us to the object of our lust. On a deeper level, vibhava tanha can manifest as the desire for self-annihilation. When the pain of existence becomes unbearable, the craving to cease to exist can arise. This is the root of suicidal ideation and nihilistic philosophies. However, From a Buddhist perspective, even this desire for oblivion is a form of tanha. It is not a path to liberation but a reaction born of suffering. A final, desperate attempt to escape dukkha without understanding its true cause. It's still a thirst, a craving for a different state of being, in this case, non-being, and as such, it only generates more karmic momentum. These three forms of tanha, fueled by a fundamental ignorance, avidya, of the true nature of reality, the three marks of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, are the direct cause that gives rise to the entire mass of suffering. The third noble truth, the truth of nirodha, the prognosis. This, monks, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving. The giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it, after diagnosing the illness, dukkha, and identifying its cause, tanha. The Buddha delivers the crucial and hope-filled prognosis. There is a cure. This is the third noble truth of nirodha, a Pali word that means cessation, ending, or extinction. This truth affirms that by completely eradicating the cause, the thirst of tanha, we can bring about the complete cessation of the illness of dukkha. This is the great, good news of the Buddhist path. Suffering is not our inescapable fate. Our condition is not terminal. There is a state of perfect peace, freedom, and profound well-being that is attainable. This state is called nibbana, Sanskrit, nirvana. Understanding what nibbana is requires us to first understand what it is not. It is one of the most misunderstood concepts in all of world religion. Nibbana is not a heavenly realm or a paradise that one goes to after death. It is not a place of eternal personal existence where the self enjoys celestial pleasures. Nor is it, as some early Western interpreters believed, a state of complete nothingness or annihilation. The word nibbana literally means to extinguish or to blow out. As one would blow out a candle flame. What is extinguished? The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion, which are the primary manifestations of tanha. The cessation of craving leads to the extinguishing of these mental defilements. What remains is not a void, but the cool, calm, luminous, and liberated nature of the mind itself, freed from the torment of its own fevers. Nibbana is described in the texts primarily through negatives. Because it is the unconditioned, it is beyond the conditioned world of space, time, and concepts that our language is designed to describe. It is the unborn, the unbecome, the unmade, the unconditioned, while our entire ordinary existence is a process of becoming, dependent on causes and conditions. Nibbana is the reality that is not dependent on anything. It is the ultimate refuge, the deathless state, amata. Crucially, the Buddha taught that nibbana is not just a future goal to be attained after death. It is a reality that can be directly experienced in this very life. An enlightened being, an arahant, is one who lives in the state of nibbana while still in a physical body. They still experience physical pain, the residue of past karma, but they no longer generate mental suffering around it. They have extinguished the inner fires of craving and aversion, and they live in a state of profound peace, compassion, and freedom, no longer shaken by the ups and downs of worldly life. The third noble truth, therefore, is the vital pivot of the whole teaching. It is the affirmation that the entire spiritual project is worthwhile because a complete and final end to all suffering is genuinely possible. It transforms the Buddha's path from a mere philosophy or way to cope with life's difficulties into a direct vehicle for total liberation. The fourth noble truth, the truth of magga, the prescription. This, monks, is the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. It is this noble eightfold path, that is, right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Having confirmed that a cure exists, the Buddha finally lays out the practical, detailed prescription for achieving it. This is the fourth noble truth of magga, the path. This is not a path of blind faith or extreme asceticism, but the middle way, majjhima patipada, a balanced and comprehensive approach to human development that avoids the two extremes the Buddha himself had explored and rejected, the extreme of sensual indulgence and the extreme of self-mortification. This path is known as the Noble Eightfold Path, and its 8 factors are not sequential steps to be mastered one after another. but interconnected and mutually reinforcing aspects of a single, integrated way of life. For clarity, they are traditionally grouped into 3 divisions of training: wisdom, panya; ethical conduct, sila; and mental discipline, samadhi. The division of wisdom, panya. This division deals with the cultivation of insight and the development of a correct cognitive orientation towards reality. 1. Right understanding, samadhi. This is the foundation of the entire path. It begins with a clear, conceptual understanding of the 4 noble truths themselves, knowing what dukkha is, its cause, its cessation, and the path to its cessation. It also means understanding the key principles of reality as taught by the Buddha, such as karma, impermanence, anicca, and no self, anatta. This initial intellectual understanding provides the map for the journey. As one progresses on the path, this conceptual understanding deepens into direct, experiential insight, seeing reality as it truly is, yatha bhuta jnana dasana. 2. Right intention, samma sankappa. This factor translates understanding into commitment. It is the quality of our motivation. It involves aligning our will and intentions away from the unwholesome and towards the wholesome. Specifically, it consists of 3 parts: the intention of renunciation, letting go of attachment and craving; the intention of loving kindness, metta, goodwill towards all beings; and the intention of harmlessness, avahimsa or karuna, compassion for all beings. This ensures that the journey is guided by wisdom and kindness, not by selfish ambition. The division of ethical conduct, sila. This division deals with purifying our verbal and physical actions, creating a foundation of outer harmony that supports the development of inner peace. 3. Right speech, samavaka. This involves abstaining from the 4 main types of harmful speech: lying, speaking falsehoods; divisive speech, slander that turns people against each other; harsh speech, abusive, angry, or insulting words; and idle chatter, frivolous gossip that wastes time and clouds the mind. Instead, one cultivates speech that is truthful, harmonious, gentle, and meaningful. 4. Right action, sammakamanta. This deals with our bodily actions. It involves abstaining from 3 main unwholesome actions: killing or harming living beings, stealing or taking what is not given, and sexual misconduct, actions involving exploitation, harm, or betrayal. Instead, one cultivates actions that are compassionate, generous, and responsible. 5. Right livelihood, samma ajiva. This extends ethical conduct into our professional lives. It means earning a living through a profession that does not cause harm to oneself or others. This involves avoiding occupations that trade in weapons, living beings, for slaughter, meat, intoxicants, or poisons. The principle is to engage in work that is ethically upright and, ideally, contributes to the well-being of society. 3. The division of mental discipline, samadhi. This division is the heart of Buddhist meditation. It is the work of training and purifying the mind itself. 6. Right effort, samma vayama. This is the energetic and joyful effort to cultivate a wholesome mind. It is a dynamic practice described in 4 parts: the effort to prevent new unwholesome states from arising, the effort to overcome unwholesome states that have already arisen, the effort to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen, and the effort to maintain and perfect wholesome states that are already present. 7. Right mindfulness, samma sati. This is the practice of developing clear, non-judgmental, moment-to-moment awareness. It is cultivated through the 4 foundations of mindfulness as detailed in the Satipatthana Sutta: mindfulness of the body, breathing, postures, sensations; mindfulness of feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral; mindfulness of the mind, states like greed, anger, or calm; and mindfulness of mental objects, the content of the mind, including the 4 noble truths themselves. This practice allows us to see the inner workings of our mind and to break our habitual, unconscious reactions. 8. Right concentration, samma samadhi. This is the development of one-pointed, sustained concentration, where the mind becomes calm, stable, and unified. Through dedicated practice, this leads to profound states of meditative absorption known as jhana. A mind that is concentrated in this way becomes a powerful instrument of insight. capable of penetrating the deepest truths of existence and uprooting the most subtle defilements. These 8 factors work in synergy. Ethical conduct, sila, creates a life free from remorse and agitation, which allows for the development of concentration, samadhi. A concentrated mind is calm and clear, providing the perfect conditions for wisdom, panya, to arise. This liberating wisdom then circles back to inform and purify one's ethical conduct and mental discipline even further, creating an upward spiral leading directly to the cessation of suffering. Conclusion: the 4 Noble Truths represent one of the most elegant and complete spiritual formulas ever offered to humanity. They are simple enough to be understood by a child, yet profound enough to be the subject of a lifetime of contemplation. They are a universal diagnosis of the human condition that transcends culture, time, and religious belief. They begin with an unflinchingly honest look at our shared reality of dukkha, a reality we so often try to ignore or distract ourselves from. But this honest appraisal is not a cause for despair, it is the necessary first step. By revealing the internal cause of this unsatisfactoriness, our own insatiable thirst or tanha, the Buddha places the power for change squarely in our own hands. The affirmation of nirodha, the possibility of a complete end to suffering in the form of nibbana, provides the profound hope and inspiration needed for the journey. And the Noble Eightfold Path provides the clear, practical, and time-tested map for that journey. The truths form a perfect, logical, and coherent whole: the illness, the cause, the cure, and the medicine. This simple guide is just that, a guide. The Buddha did not ask for blind belief but extended an invitation, famously summarized as "Ihipassiko," meaning, come and see for yourself. The 4 Noble Truths are not simply a philosophy to be admired, but a path to be walked, a reality to be seen, and a freedom to be won.